followed by our remembrances. Over to you, Deborah.
Good morning and a Yahoo to all. We're here today virtually to enact one of the defining qualities of our liberal religious tradition, congregational polity and the use of the democratic process. These unprecedented times challenge us to new ways of being together, expand our understanding of gathering, enhance the recognition of the importance of our relationships, and call us, even in these times, to honor the importance the many voices, every voice, is in determining the direction, the vision, and the work of this congregation. Leadership of this community have responded to these challenges with thoughtfulness and integrity, keeping always the well-being of the congregation as a whole and the safety of individuals central. There have been difficult choices with more unknowns than are even reasonable to attempt to make such decisions in, and yet they have brought their best deliberations to you here today. Here, that each of you may add your own voice and respectfully listen to the voices of others, honoring each person's integrity and dignity. We are encouraged to offer our wisdom, our support, and especially today, our appreciation for the difficult responses that are necessary and have been necessary. Here together, we will make some decisions that will determine our immediate common future. We officially gather twice a year. During this spring, which has now become summer meeting, we take time to remember those who have died since our last meeting. We do this with sorrow for their loss and deep appreciation for their many contributions. We name and remember Marion McPherson, Pat Jessup, Tova Ingbritson, and Joan Riches. We individually and a community are better from having known them. I also want to take today an opportunity to acknowledge another significant milestone. Longtime member Peggy Raitt celebrated her 100th birthday on Friday. I want you to know that flowers and a card were delivered to her on Friday from all of us. And so we light our chalice, a symbol of the warmth of the many relationships here, those that have been and those yet to be. May the flame offered be a beacon of commitment, wisdom, and justice, its burning love made manifest.
Thank you, Deborah, for this and for being here with us while you're on vacation. Let me remind us of our purpose statement. We come together in beloved community, guided by our Unitarian Universalist principles and sources, to grow in wisdom, welcome and deepen relationships, and act for a just and sustainable world. Normally we confirm quorum at this time, but I'm going to give you some short president's remarks to give our helpers more time to confirm quorum. There are still people coming into the meeting. These challenging times have presented some real difficulties and opportunities to us. Difficulties certainly in the physical distancing and missing our joy of being together, worshiping, singing, and being in community. Zoom fortunately has helped us here And indeed, it has created some different connecting opportunities we didn't have before. I know that I have enjoyed connecting with people I haven't spoken to in a while or ever at Zoom coffee hours, Zoom socials, and Zoom dinner parties. There is obviously a real financial difficulty to this COVID crisis, both for many personal finances and those of Calgary Unitarians. The fiscal year 2021 budget that goes from August 1st, 2020 to July 31st, 2021, that we are presenting to you assumes that we will have our renters back in the building as of January 1st. And those renters are largely choirs and CYPT, or Calgary Young People's Theatre. Everything, of course, depends on what the Alberta government health regulations stipulate. There is a test of a reduced capacity summer theatre camp now of CYPT in our building. And if their COVID protocols work well, they could even start using our building before January. Plus, choirs across Alberta are asking the government to consider letting choirs rehearse indoors with a 6-foot minimum distancing, given that fitness gyms are now open on that basis. So we should hopefully see our choir tenants and our beloved Unitarian choirs back at least rehearsing in our building by January 1st at the latest. Our hardworking treasurer, Alan Waugh, will go through the budget details with you. We have some good news for you. Earlier this week, it looked like we would have a $10,000 surplus this year. But in fact, as of yesterday, our latest numbers show that we can expect a surplus this year of about $24,000, give or take around $5,000, which is a huge improvement over the $4,000 deficit that was originally planned in the budget. A good portion of this surplus is due to the government payroll subsidy. Next year, though, we are facing a $39,000 deficit due to loss of rental income and expectation of reduced donations and fundraising. Fortunately, we have almost $90,000 restricted cash balance that we can draw on at this time, in addition to the large surplus that we're facing from this fiscal. So we will ask you to approve this fiscal year 2021 budget today, but let me reassure you that we will offer a budget update and a review at our planned Sunday, December 6th congregational meeting. We recognize that with COVID, things are very much in flux, and it will therefore be important to update the congregation on our financials at this time. Back in February and early March, when we were being asked to pledge for this upcoming fiscal, we were asked to give a 3% increase. Some of us did this and some even more, some less. But no one at pledging time had any idea that we would be facing a $39,000 deficit for next year. I am therefore asking those who are in a position to make a one-time extraordinary COVID crisis donation on top of the pledge they have already made to please do so. This would not be lumped in with your pledge, and you would not be expected to continue this next year. But if you're in a position now to give us some extra funds in light of this high deficit, please join me in making an additional donation. You can mail checks to our treasurer or e-transfer the special donation to treasurer@calgaryunitarians.ca. I sincerely thank you in advance. Any amount would be so appreciated. And as I say that, I also absolutely recognize that there are others in absolutely no position at all to help here, and that is totally understandable. So let us now go to confirmation of quorum, appointment of parliamentarian, and meeting procedures. Our bylaws require 30-day posting of our membership list on our office door, which was done by Martha on June 11th. And this membership list, along with the notice of meeting and agenda, was emailed and mailed out on June 11th. We currently have 165 members at Calgary Unitarians, of which 156 live within Calgary city limits. Our bylaws state that the quorum for a regular or special business meeting of the church shall be 30% of members who live within the Calgary city limits. So 47 people is our quorum number. Pam Reckie is the counter of our quorum, and I know she's been tallying up the breakout rooms, and I also know that Ned has been tallying up all the people who have been outside of those breakout rooms. So I now ask Pam if you would unmute and give us the status of quorum, please.
At this time, we have exactly 47.
Yes, so we have one other.
I see there are a few other people joining too, so we'll go above that.
So proper notice having been given and quorum being present, the meeting is now constituted. We follow Bruno's rules of order, and Eric Levitt has kindly agreed to be our parliamentarian. Only members are allowed to vote, but non-members are very welcome to observe. We ask that questions and comments be from members only. Please limit your remarks or questions to the motion on the floor. For example, if there's a motion to amend the budget in a specific way, we'd ask you to focus your comments on whether you are pro or con that specific amendment. Our basic meeting procedures are as follows. We ask that people use the raise hand feature, and Ned Levitt in the chat wrote to everybody to raise your hand. You open your participants window and it should be right there or in the more button. And if you continue to have problems with that, you can use your chat to ask for more advice on that. And we will also have, I'll be giving you some technical help numbers. When you raise your hand, that indicates you want to speak for or against a motion or to get clarification. And we'll ask you to identify yourself when it's your turn to speak. And please keep your remarks brief. So you'll unmute yourself on our request and then you'll remute yourself afterwards. If you have technical questions, resume or getting chat to work or things like that, you can call our 2 Zoom assistants at these cell numbers, and I'll ask Ned to share this screen of the phone numbers now. And you may want to have a pen and just jot these numbers down. So the numbers are Leslie Robinson at 403-863-1164 or Alex Schumacher 403-283-1982. So if you have trouble voting or getting a question through, or you're not getting Zoom to work, please call or text either of these cell numbers. Thank you. Ned, you can take, see sharing that. We are using the Zoom polling function to do our votes. And we tested this back on May 3rd, just to get people a little familiar with it. So every poll has 2 questions, and both of these questions must be answered before you press submit. The second question is for those households that have 2 members on the same computer. If there's only 1 member in a household, then the second question must still be answered, but as not applicable. Or if there's 1 member on 1 computer, you're always answering the second question is not applicable. So let me give you a couple of examples. Trish Robbins and Sheila Ward are here today on the same computer. So Trish should use question 1 on each poll, and Sheila should use question 2. And that way we get both of their votes. But Conrad Iassi is here, and he's the only member on his computer. So he will use always the first question to state how he votes on the motion, and he will always answer not applicable on the second question, and he has to answer both questions before he presses submit. And this is a way we can capture when we have 2 members on 1 computer. And if you're on the phone, when we ask you to vote, you would press *9 in favor of the vote. If we don't see a *9 from you, we will assume you're not in favor of the vote. You will see the results of the Zoom poll as soon as it closes, but we will also be comparing the list of people who have voted against the member list to ensure that only members' votes are counted. And we can get these poll results as soon as the Zoom meeting is ended. So motions will be announced passed pending final vote report scrutiny. Does anyone have any questions before we start the first vote or poll? If you do, please raise your hand. I'm not seeing any raised hands, so I'm going to go on. I will now entertain a motion to adopt the agenda you were sent on June 11th and resent July 7th. I see that this motion is moved by Alan Waugh and seconded by Pam Rickey. Is there any discussion on the agenda motion? Raise your hand if there is. I'm not seeing any raised hands, therefore no discussion. Mitch will now send out the poll about adopting this agenda. Please indicate your vote on the poll. And again, remember that the second question must be answered by all households. The second question is to be answered by the second voting member on the same computer. If there's no second voting member, then you press not applicable on that second question and press submit. And you can't press submit if you haven't answered both questions. Again, people on the phones use *9. I see we have one raised hands in favor of the vote on *9. And Mitch, I will leave it to you then to announce the results of the poll once it's closed.
There we go. 32 in favor, sorry, 34 in favor, and then 0 opposed.
Okay. I will now entertain a motion to adopt the minutes of the previous congregational meeting on December 1st, 2019. These minutes were sent to you on June 11th and again on July 10th. I see that this motion is moved by Leslie Robinson and seconded by Conrad Ayasi. Is there any discussion on this motion to approve past minutes? If there is, you can raise your hand. And Neil on the phone, I'm going to ask you to do *9 again, which will take away your raised hand in preparation for the next vote. No discussion, so we will now send out the poll about adopting these minutes of December 1st. Please indicate your vote on the polls. Remember, the second question must be answered by all households. And the second question is for the second voting member on the same computer. If there's no second voting member, then you indicate not applicable and press submit.
And we have 30 seconds to do these polls. Wow, not even that. Sorry. Results here, Jane, I have 40 in favor and
Okay.
None opposed.
So the motion has carried. And for the record, the agenda motion also carried.
Yes.
The nominating slate was announced by acclamation at our meeting on May 3rd. Sadly, we then had a vacancy on the lay chaplaincy committee due to the sad and very sudden death of Joan Riches. The nominating committee asked the board to approve Holly Noel to fill the balance of Joan's term on lay chaplaincy, which goes to May of 2021. This motion was passed, and you were sent the revised slate of nominations for information purposes. I now call on our treasurer, Alan Waugh, who is moving that we approve the proposed fiscal year 2021 budget. And I see that Pam Rickey is seconding this motion. This budget is now open for discussion, and Alan, as mover of the motion, will speak first on it. And we will now have Alan share his screen with our budget. Remember, if you want to speak to the motion or ask for clarification, please use raise your hand feature, and we will take you in the order of questions received. And we will ask that you unmute yourself and then remute yourself afterwards. And now, Alan, you can unmute yourself and begin to speak on the budget, please.
Yes, as Jane said, this year's budget is much reduced due to fewer contributions or pledges and to some reduced expenses. So compared to last year's budget, we're about $12,000 less this year. The income, we are calculating that the donations pledged may not all come in due to the bad economic conditions. Fundraising is down. We didn't have the cabaret this past spring, among other things. And the rents will be lower because the building will be closed for about 5 months, according to plans. Now, I would point out again, we're expecting a much higher surplus by the end of this year of approximately 25,000. Now, of that, 14,000 will be from the emergency wage subsidy, which we're in the process of applying for. Okay, here's a summary of the expenses that we expect next year. I'll point out for administration, we have a reduced amount. Our administrator will be working 10 hours a week instead of 20 from August through December. And there will be less use of the copier and office supplies, so that's a bit reduced. We see another big reduction in physical plant. $11,000 of that is that we will not be adding to the long-term building maintenance fund, which currently stands at around $33,000. Technology will be up for obvious reasons, since we're depending so heavily on these services during these virtual meetings and events. We will be increasing the social justice by committee by about $1,000. And this is intended to be directed to support the Calgary Alliance for the Common Good, which we have been supporting in the past several years. Here we have more detail on the fund. If those of you who received a copy earlier this week, the details on some of these have been corrected and changed, updated, but the fundamental content remains the same.
Alan, did you mention about COLA?
Oh, as you'll see here at the top of each page, we've tentatively, we're giving all staff a 1.1% COLA increase. Under the new budget change, that amount does not appear. It's only seen when you look at the staff salaries. For instance, the minister's salary, she gets no actual increase this year, except her salary will be about 1,000 higher from last year's budget, and that is the COLA.
And just as a bit of background on COLA, we initially presented a budget with no COLA at our budget town hall, and there seemed to be a groundswell to at least look at doing half COLA in recognition that we expect to have some inflation in this year, but that it will be less than the 2.2% that is normally assigned in December. For consistency, we always take the December of the previous year inflation number as we start our budget planning, which was 2.2% in December. We've taken 1.1. And as background, I looked at Stats Canada last night. Their current forecast for inflation for 2020 is 0.61%, reflecting some of the decreases in rent, fuel, some of those areas. And for 2021, it's forecast to be 1.21%. So using 1.1 now is not unreasonable in light of those expectations. But this, for example, is something that we will relook when we come to you on December 6th. So bear in mind, you will have a chance to look at a revised budget and vote on a revised budget at the December 6th meeting. So the board is recommending we use 1.1% now, but that is certainly something that can be re-examined as we look at the finances on December 6th. Alan, are we ready to start taking any questions? People speaking pro and con on this motion? This is the motion that's on the table to adopt the proposed budget as stands. And I'm just looking to see if we've got any raised hands. I don't see any raised hands. So I will then call for a vote. We can do the original. Mitch, you would initiate the poll then for the original proposed budget.
Yes, and people, it seems that the poll is automatically closing in about 25 seconds. So be brisk with your voting. Motion to approve the fiscal year 21 budget.
Excuse me, Bob Wilson has his hand up.
Oh, okay.
Not come up, Mitch.
What did you say?
Oh, yes. Bob Wilson has his hand up. Sorry, I see it now. Bob, you can unmute. You have the floor.
Hi. Back when the Finance Committee looked at this in the fall or in the spring, we did recommend that there be no COLA at this time because of the uncertainty and the size of the deficit. Therefore, and I did write the board and tell them that that was my opinion and the opinion of finance at the time. My motion then is to withhold the COLA until December, when we have a much better picture of what is going to happen this year. There are a lot of assumptions in this budget that we have no idea if they're going to come true or not. And we need to get a better picture before we can really afford to go ahead with COLA, in my opinion. Therefore, that's my motion, and hopefully there's a seconder to get this discussion rolling.
So specifically, we have an amended motion on the table. I'd ask, is there anybody out there who wants to second it? Can you put that maybe in chat or, by the way, Neil, I see that you've got your hand raised. I think that's probably just from past voting. So if you could *9 if you're not actually asking a question. Oh, I see Hazel is seconding it. So the motion is there. So now we are going to, Ned, if you could bring up the budget motion screen and let's amend that to show that the amendment is no COLA. We're going to first vote on this amendment. So we will show you the budget screen and then you will be asked a poll to vote on the, we call it amendment number 1. So we're voting on this same budget with the 1.1% COLA removed. And I see a couple of people. So Bob, you can lower your hand, please. And Loretta, are you speaking? If you're speaking on this specific motion, you can unmute and speak.
I'm speaking against the amendment to the motion, given the fact that the information we had last week showed a much bleaker picture in terms of our surplus. And even at that time, many of us were saying that we should do something towards COLA. So I would be voting to keep COLA that amount.
Okay,
with
thank you.
Reconsideration in December.
You can now lower your hand and mute, please. And I will go to Susan Ridley. I assume you're speaking on this motion, please. You can unmute yourself and speak.
Can I ask a point of clarification right now?
Yes.
The right time?
Is it? Yeah, go ahead and ask
Is it
clarification.
okay? Okay,
Yep.
so reconsideration in December, and we are voting on August 1st to July 31st fiscal year, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and you can lower your hand, please. And Neil, if you're asking a question, you can unmute. If not, please lower your hand. Press *9. Okay, I see no other questions. I think we are ready to go. Will be the amendment number 1 poll. Mitch, you could start that poll.
Whether to give the staff, I mean,
You're not muted.
oh,
And Mitch, if the vote is close, we should consider the votes of the co-hosts who are not able to vote with polls. In
Okay, that is 45 seconds. And the results are 17 in favor and 27 opposed. So it does not carry.
So we are back to the original motion. Is there any, and the amounts of co-hosts are not enough to change that. Okay, so the amendment by Bob Wilson, seconded by Hazel Corcoran, has been defeated. We are back to the original motion. If I see no other questions, so I think we're ready to call for the vote on the original motion. Mitch, you can proceed with that poll. And maybe co-hosts, we can put in the chat what our vote is.
So 45 seconds. And we have 43 in favor, 2 opposed, 1, 3, 5 abstentions.
Okay, the motion has carried. I am now going to ask for a motion to adjourn. And I see that Conrad Ayasi is moving this, seconded by Leslie Robinson. We can now send out the poll about adjourning. Please remember, this is just adjourning from the AGM. We then have a 2-minute AGM on our foundation to follow. So we can do the poll on adjourning. Remember, again, second question answered by all households. The second question is for the second voting member on the same computer. If there's no second voting member, indicate not applicable on the second question and press submit. You guys must be pros at this point.
Okay, we had 39 in favor, none opposed, 2 abstentions.
Okay, the motion is now adjourned. I now call to order the Calgary Unitarian Community Foundation AGM. We've already determined that we have quorum. I will now entertain a motion to adopt the minutes of the previous foundation meeting, which was on May 5th, 2019. These minutes were sent to you June 11th and again on July 10th. I see this motion is moved by Leslie Robinson and seconded by Conrad Ayasi. Is there any discussion on these past minutes? Please raise your hand if you need to discuss them.
Yes,
No
please.
discussion. I think we can call for the poll. Adopting the foundation minutes of May 5th. Please, everyone, please mute yourself if I hear a little bit of background noise there. And again, the usual, everybody has to answer both questions. If there's no second voting member on your computer, you would answer not applicable on the second question. And people on phones would use *9 to vote. Yep, I see that Neil has voted. That's great.
And 35 in favor, none opposed.
Okay, the yearly report of the foundation states that there has been no activity at all this year, and there's an ongoing $49 cash balance. You were sent this statement. The slate of officers proposed is elected by acclamation for the foundation and is as follows: Jane Ebron, President; Conrad Ayasi, Vice President; Pam Rickey, Secretary; Alan Waugh, Treasurer. I now ask for a motion to adjourn the foundation annual general meeting. I see that Conrad Ayasi is moving this, seconded by Leslie Robinson. And I will now send out, or Mitch will send out a poll about adjourning the foundation meeting. And the usual, everybody has to answer both questions. Not applicable on the second question if you don't have a second member on the same computer.
People are getting really good at this, Jane.
Aye. Way to go, team. And this is our last poll. So
we have 44 in favor and 1 opposed just for fun and 2 abstentions, 3 abstentions.
the foundation meeting is adjourned. The motion.